So I get my form back, and there's a physical rubber stamp on it. My immune system's really good at eliminating threats. It killed my entire pancreas. I've almost missed flights because a driver just drove away when he saw I had a dog. Blockchain is a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that anyone with an internet connection can see.
Hey, Weirdo, welcome back. Today's guest is a perfect example of how a deeply personal problem can lead to a world-changing solution. His story sits at a fascinating crossroads of personal health, government regulation, and cutting-edge technology. Dominic Zagera was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was just 23 months old. His life has been a masterclass in managing his chronic condition, a reality that eventually led him to his partner, a Golden Doodle service dog named Blaze, who helps him monitor his blood sugar levels. Professionally, Dominic's path has been just as unique. After graduating from George Washington University, he started his career at IBM in a bank regulatory consulting. There, he was thrown into the deep end of the digital frontier, working with banks being fined by the government for illicit crypto transactions. This trial by fire forged an expertise that to the heart of the beast, becoming a virtual currency financial crime specialist for the New York State Department of Financial Solutions.
It's financial services, not financial solutions.
A virtual currency unit financial specialist for the New York State Department of Financial Services. Today, he's a senior managing consultant at the prestigious Berkeley Research Group, advising on complex world of digital assets. But it was a personal experience that sparked his latest venture. When trying to travel internationally with Blaze, Dominic ran headfirst into the bureaucratic brick wall that we all know and love, state of the art for 1950. We're talking about a convoluted mess of paper forms, overnight shipping to government offices, and literal rubber stamps for approval, a process that cost him $1,500 for a single trip. He realized that the very technology, blockchain, held the very key to this solution. Now he's the founder of DogTag, an app that acts as a digital passport for our pets, using verifiable credentials to replace archaic paper trail. He's on a mission to fix the broken system, a mission that is taking him to Capitol Hill on March 1st. He could take this case to lawmakers. He's here to tell us the story. Dominic, welcome to the show, and I apologize for butchering your intro.
No, you did a great job. I appreciate you having me on. I am a big fan of Canada. I've never taken Blaze to Canada, but I'm sure that we'll have a part 2 about me taking Blaze to Canada and hopefully how easy it is using DogTag.
Hopefully, yes, we will hopefully get that installed up in Canada before you come here. I do want to get a little bit into your background. So just a little bit of personal history here. My dad has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I know you're type 1. Can you just kind of tell our audience like a little bit of the difference between type 2 and type 1 diabetes?
Sure, yeah. So the nice part about type 2 diabetics is that everyone seems to know someone who is diabetic. There's a lot of awareness in the community. My dad also has diabetes. He also has type 1 though. So it is a genetic trait that I believe is passed on. If the science comes out and it says, actually, diabetes is not genetic, I won't believe it. There's nothing really that I can read that will change my mind on that. But big difference between the two is that type 1 diabetes is a complete eradication of your cells that your immune system identifies as threats. My immune system is really good at eliminating threats. It killed my entire pancreas. Type 2 diabetics, it's more of a lifestyle where your pancreas is not able to keep up with your lifestyle. And so it starts to shut down other things. So there's wonderful solutions both in type 1 and type 2 diabetes. The medicine really is fantastic. I'm hoping that we get a cure. I've heard my entire life that we're only 5 years away, and I'm proud to tell you that we are 5 years away.
Hear that all the time. I've been hearing that for a while too. With AI, we are getting closer. I think we also just solved a whole handful of cancers not too long ago. So hopefully in the future. Can you tell me about Blaze's role in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at me and you look at my background, you probably think like I'm really into technology. And that would be correct. I am really into technology, but the best continuous glucose monitors that are available to diabetics and now everyone, they are about 20 minutes behind what's
And
actually happening in your body. And the really fascinating thing, and it still shocks me when Blaze gives me an alert because it feels like I'm living in the future. I'm getting data that's 20 minutes late. Blaze is able to tell me, oh, your blood sugar is high right now, or your blood sugar is low right now. And we can get into like the science of how he's able to detect that. It's really fascinating, but it's one of those rare cases, actually, not rare, probably one of the universal cases where biology is better than technology.
I do kind of want to get into that. How does a dog understand that?
Yeah, so great question. I hope I've gotten good at this explanation because I do explain it to a lot of people. But the way that dogs are able to detect anything, whether it's bombs or drugs or low blood sugars, is through scent. So Blaze was trained by a great organization, Diabetic Alert Dogs of America, based out of Las Vegas. And what they do is request that I submit a bunch of saliva samples for my blood sugar at various levels. So some low, some high, some in the middle. And then what they do is train the dog to detect that smell. So when my body in real time is either dropping or rising, then Blaze is able to know, oh, this is my time to do my job. And he gets rewarded very handsomely. I have some favorite treats or duck treats. So we want to make sure he's wired in to get this.
I never knew that they tailored the dogs directly to the individual. I always thought it was just you go pick up a dog and it just knows. That is fascinating information.
Well, a little bit of both. They do use my specific pheromones, but there is kind of this human universal of high and low blood sugar where I've been alerted for people who skip breakfast. I go to the office, Fred comes in, Blaze starts thawing me, take a test. I'm like, I'm pretty good. What's going on? Luckily, my friend let me test his blood sugar, and he wasn't deathly low or anything, but he was below range that Blaze is supposed to detect. So interesting that humans kind of have this universal smell. It's fascinating.
Yeah. What has the bond with you and Blaze been like? How has that kind of driven your life or driven what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up with dogs. Was kind of scared of dogs growing up, to be honest. I was a dog sitter once and like the dog got away from me. So I made a little trail of treats back to the house. I was not hired back to be a dog sitter, but do think that when you are responsible to take care of something, but also you're responsible for a dog to come with you everywhere, makes you really kind of think about life in a different way. I will say, Blaze absolutely helps me more than I help him. He has a vest that includes extra sugar if I need it, extra if I need it. Sometimes I'll put extra iPhone charger power packs in there. So he's really the world's best wingman and one of the best things that I could ask for as a diabetic to keep me alive and healthy.
It's weird coming. I grew up with dogs. I've never not the only period where I didn't have a dog was when I was going to school. It's very weird to hear somebody be, I was afraid of dogs. And then when I got one, it was just a lovely experience. And I do understand what it means. I wish I could take my dog more places. I moved out to an island just so that I could take her more places, but she's still afraid of everything. So it's kind of hard. Seems like a good moment to move into the dog tag. Why don't we break down what dog tag's all about and where you're headed with it?
Well, I think in order to do that, important to understand there are some universal good things that the government wants to do that create these bureaucratic processes. Having rabid dogs, probably not good. It's probably good to make sure that all the dogs are vaccinated for rabies. And unfortunately, when they first designed this process, they didn't have blockchain technology. They didn't have a decentralized distributed ledger that anyone could look at with an internet connection. And I think there's a real opportunity to skip the technology of email in the grand scheme of verifying these very important traits or qualities or credentials that your dog needs to have to travel even between the US and Canada.
Basically, what you're trying to break down is the paperwork trail. We're starting back in when people started traveling with animals and they started actually cracking down on rabies and on these types of things. Just a little bit of background. My dog, Tara, she had heartworm when she came over. And it was documented on her paperwork that she was negative, but even coming over, they didn't catch it in time, I guess, and that can happen. But that paperwork was just a piece of paper given to me. I lost that the second I had it. Can we go into the process of what currently happens when you travel with an animal?
Sure. Before we get there, let's get to vaccination and the certificate process. So there are a bunch of requirements for vaccinations based on where you live. In America, there's some places that have very strict rules. I would say New York City is probably one of the more moderate places. But in New York, if you go to a groomer, you need to provide the groomer with a rabies proof of vaccination, a distemper proof of vaccination, and a Bordetella proof of vaccination. You go to somewhere in, a more free-thinking place in America, maybe they just require rabies. The baseline for the U.S., according to the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, is that all dogs are vaccinated for rabies. So it's important to build infrastructure here that the people who actually do the vaccinations, the veterinarians, it's important that they are a big part of this revolution in how we're keeping track of pet health. Now, before we even get to government approval, we want to make sure that the vets are giving valid vaccines. If you look at a rabies vaccine certificate, there's a bunch of fields that relate to who makes this vaccine. What's the name of the vaccine? What is the batch number of the vaccine? Probably one time there was a vaccine batch that went wrong or didn't work. So now that's a requirement. And then there's a batch expiration date. You actually have to use the vaccine before this date. And the nice part about blockchain is you can make all of these checks programmatic. For the government, you can make it a policy that we don't allow dogs that have this specific batch of rabies vaccine because it didn't work. And that's a really easy and flexible policy control. Now, if you could email people who are dog tag users and say, hey, just so you know, the government doesn't accept your rabies vaccine anymore. You might want to get this checked before you try traveling. That would be a nice thing to do as well. But for the vet, it's about getting all of the elements that you need to include on these vaccination certificates to prove that this dog is truly vaccinated for rabies or distemper or Bordetella. And then here's a PDF. And pet owner, make sure you don't lose this, because if you do, you're going to need to get another one.
Yep. In the States, the veterinary clinics have to submit documentation to the federal government about all that as well?
No, they don't. So it is on the dog owner to retain all of this information, and then when the government wants it, to provide it to the government.
Okay. So it's a very broken process. It could be lost, and because it's paper, half the time it's not even electronic. It's just a piece of paper. I remember I still have stickers. They gave me stickers that I have to keep hold of to say when these were tracked. So I don't know if you've got...
You get a little rabies heart.
Yep.
Rabies heart that has an expiration date. But the reality, the lived experience of most dog owners that I've talked to is that instead of trying to find all this paperwork, they'll just end up going back to the vet and doing another vaccination, which is probably problematic. And you probably want to be a little more organized as a dog owner. And that's really what dog tag is trying to do. Keep you organized.
So before we go any further, I want to get kind of into the blockchain. Can we describe blockchain for people who don't understand what it's about?
Sure. Blockchain is a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that anyone with an internet connection can see. And that, I think, is the simplest explanation to understand blockchain.
Completely understand where you're coming from. And yes, that is the most apt description that I could even I've heard. Yeah. The ledger that you can just go check of everything everywhere, anytime. How is that process different from how things work today?
So the way things work today is that it requires physical paper at almost every step of the process. And physical paper is a very antiquated medium to do a lot of things. And it's also easy to fake, especially in the age of AI. You can make fake credentials. And I'm sure there's stories about people faking credentials to get their dogs into the States or to go traveling with them. And that's problematic as well. So I do think that having a more digital solution, I propose blockchain because I think it makes everyone's life easier. But a better solution than physical paper and rubber stamps makes everyone safer, happier, healthier, and less stressed. That's what it's all about. Dealing with government processes, annoying, long, stressful.
I just want to also point out that we're kind of skipping a medium here too. We're going from antiquated paper past the internet straight into digital asset infrastructure that a lot of companies right now are struggling to even interpret, let alone use. Why did you decide to go for that leap right?
That's such a good question. And I remember in high school being so blown away in one of my economics courses about the mobile phone revolution in Africa. African countries didn't have landlines. By the time landlines were cheap enough to get to developing countries, they just went straight to mobile phones. And I was, of course, I barely use a landline as is. That makes so much sense. I don't have a home phone right now. I'm sure you don't either. So that has kind of been when I think about core memories of high school, that one always sticks out to me. And it does seem like this is another one of those rare opportunities where we don't want to do PDF files and email. That is not what we're trying to do here. We're going to take a painfully antiquated thing and we're going to speed it up to 2026 technology.
I'm going to try and pair your episode with another episode that I'm going to go more deep dive into blockchain, because I honestly see it as it's the tangible proof we need in the digital age. It's the thing that's non-fungible. It's the thing that's going to say, hey, this is a real person. This is a real tied to actual human in the real world. I think that's where blockchain really becomes powerful. And everybody was scared off by the crypto runs. And this is how technology gets places, is you have to have these nightmare scenarios where it doesn't work, where everybody's piling on and then it breaks. But it's a technology that's not going anywhere because it's been out for 15 years and nobody's disproved it yet, is the major caveat.
I mean, it continues to have users, it continues to perform transactions. And I think what dog tag really represents is the callback to when I was in college and people were talking about blockchain. People were talking about identity and verifying things. And then we can do banking this and financialization of it really sped up. And I think in a way, there's a world where you can use the blockchain to prove authenticity and prove this was generated by AI. And there is a way that there's an intersection between what the blockchain does and what AI does. And it goes back to this kind of theme of waste, fraud, and abuse, where you can, if you find a way or you find a vet who's just going to give you all 3 of your dog's vaccinations the day before you need them, maybe that's real, maybe. But in a blockchain world, if you're the government trying to fight fraud, you can see that, and then you can make a phone call. You can investigate it. And that type of suspicious activity can make the government not only more effective and better at its job, but also can create the benefits of rapid identification of these problems.
Sorry, you just kind of got me off track here, but I also thought about, so Canada has a big problem right now with their vets. There's a bunch of big corporations buying tiny vets right now. So they're all becoming
Oh,
one conglomerate under an umbrella, and it's becoming, prices are rising because of it. A really good point too. The blockchain would also help identify where big players are taking up the smaller players. So you can actually track who's doing what, and we can actually start to take on monopolies as we're supposed to in the first place.
interesting, right? Because the way that dog tag works is you need to be, as a vet in the States, you need to have a registration with the federal government and typically with the local government as well. So there's two different checks for what you need to be a licensed veterinarian. Kind of surprising to hear that Canada, of all places, is dealing with a veterinarian monopoly.
Not at all. We have a monopoly on our food. We have a monopoly on our streaming services. We have a monopoly on our media. Everything in Canada is a monopoly, even the government. Fun fact, 40% of Canadian employment is in some way, shape, or form government. 40%. That's almost half the entire country.
Yeah, that's
So
40% is a high percentage.
this is what we're going through right now, is we have too many monopolies and we're trying to get as many of them knocked out and built out as possible. The government is so deep in the pockets of things, we can't do anything right now. But we thank the US for rocking the boat, because a lot of people are starting to wake up and say, hey, this is not correct.
How did the US rock the boat? We tried to buy Canada.
Our government into an authoritarian state. So we had Mark Carney come in saying, we're going to beat the big bad Trump. For the past year, he's done none of that. From conglomerating power, well, the other sides are basically, look, we've gotten nothing done in a year. We're supposed to have houses the speed we've never seen it before. Last year, we built 9 houses. Our government's starting to falter. It's kind of the rhetoric from the United States pushed our government to go on that. And now they're failing finally because they bet on the wrong horse. It's going to be interesting to see. We're going to have an election coming this spring. So we'll see what happens. We're either going to have a minority or majority liberal government, in which case I'm moving to the United States, or we're going to have a completely different government in charge, which gotta help us. I hope we do.
Well, I hope that if you move to the United States, you use dog tags to get your dog in the shape.
As soon as I get an iPhone, I'm
Yeah.
still an Android user.
We'll get a dog tag on the Android soon enough. I will say, I'll use this point kind of on government to say that one thing I think the US government does do relatively well is experimentation. You always hear about governments moving slowly, and that's totally true. They definitely do. But there are a lot of very smart people who are working on data modernization initiatives. And that is the type of stuff that can make the government more efficient. Let's get the government to start thinking about user experience for their citizens. User experience that dog tag is creating is amazing for the government. They should be so happy with it based on what they have now.
I appreciate that too, because when I was working for the Ontario ministry, we're the first ministry to bring in user experience experts and give our users gift cards to be able to test out things. And we were doing a modernization initiative in 2020. That kind of initiative that Canadian government doesn't take is, hey, let's experiment, see where this goes and see if it's viable. We don't even do that. We're just going to continue the path of paying the big guys for what we already know. Let's get into dog tag. How are you solving the problems with it? Address the problems.
So the problem that I'm looking to solve is this 10-day wait time can be really stressful for dog owners when they go traveling. And I think the best way to tell this story is this past November, I took a trip to Madrid and I looked up, how do I take a dog to Madrid? Because most people just put their dog in kennel or boarding place. And I obviously have a service dog, right? I can't just leave him somewhere. I need him. So I really had to figure out, how does this work and how can I do this? And so looked it up on Google, found the government form and realized I need to get a EU health certificate from my vet. So the EU has this form that they need to complete, and it needs to be completed by your vet and then verified by the US government. Then once you get to Europe, then they check it at customs to make sure everything is in line with what they like. And that process of going to the vet, getting the government to approve the form, has to be completed within 10 days. Now, that seems an easy thing. All right, we have to do a form and then we have to complete it. You have 10 days to do it. Awesome. Then you get into the antiquated infrastructure that's currently used to do that. And this is the root of the problem that I'm solving, because you have to fill out a physical form when you're at that literal paper. Then they overnight ship it to Washington, D.C. When I went to Madrid, the government was shut down. So you might not even get it back. I got it back. So talk about stressful things. They were, yeah, we're going to try and send it to the government, but they're shut down. It might not work.
Oh,
So I get my form back and there's a physical rubber stamp on it. And I think it's also important to say I had to pay for overnight shipping to get it back from DC as well. Then I carried the paper forms through the airport in addition to my passport, in addition to all the other stuff that I would need. It's a very antiquated solution. I don't want to say that it's a bad solution because I'm sure at the time it was the best that they could do. But now, in the age of blockchain, in the age of digital credentials and verifiable credentials, I think dogs are an amazing opportunity to test drive the government's acceptance of verifiable digital blockchain-based credentials.
it's fair that you're going at this. I want to provide a little light here. It's what the medical sector should, right? This is basically setting up the test pilot for the medical sector using animals because the system is as antiquated as it is, but the data isn't as sensitive as what medical records would have. Really applaud your level of thinking on this one.
You are absolutely correct. This is the lowest stakes problem that we can solve. Dogs, thank God, don't have HIPAA rights we have in America. I'm sure Canadians have some type of HIPAA rights.
Yep.
As a diabetic who has to deal with a doctor, a pharmacy, a diabetic supply company, an insurance company, I've written HIPAA waivers for my doctor and I've sent them to my insurance company. I want to make your life easier. It's okay to share my information. And they refuse to do it. It is kind of this massive opportunity to look at health record keeping. And I will give a shout out to the Midnight blockchain, who are still early stages, but they are working on making some zero knowledge proof enabled. You can ask your other blockchain expert to kind of dive deep on the zero knowledge proof.
Yep.
They're using ZK proofs to solve for some of the HIPAA compliance things, which is interesting. I am trying to solve a very specific problem with a very simple solution. And I'm hopeful that this is the thing that can give the comfort it needs to embrace blockchain as a policy tool and as a way to make the citizen consumer experience a little better.
Honestly, I can't wait to see it. I hope everything comes out all right because I want this more than anything. The moment you told me about it, I'm, oh my God, yeah, I could totally use this. Even from somebody who doesn't, even if you're not in the country, even if you're not in the United States, you could use this as your own personal record keeper.
Correct.
And it would be so much handier than all of the work that I've got 5 folders for my 5 animals sitting here just filled with paperwork.
To brag about my product a little bit. The blockchain part of it is kind of on the back end. Most users are not touching the blockchain. They're just seeing what looks like a Web 2 app. And to the extent you upload the PDF files that you get from your vet, and you can email them to your groomer, to your boarder, to your trainer. I want to make it as useful for as many people as possible. I originally built it to be a personal pet health manager for Blaze. And regardless of your blockchain fluency, the app experience will not be different. If you want to test out what dog tag looks like on the blockchain, you're going to have to go to a block explorer and really go looking.
when you talk to tech people as we get too into the tech weeds.
Yeah. The amount of times I've been asked, why'd you choose, it's on the Arbitrum blockchain. Why'd you choose the Arbitrum blockchain? Well, because it's cheap and fast and it supports all of the credentialing that I want to do. I'm not really, it almost reminds me of what browser do you use? Do you use Chrome? We're on Chrome right now. Do you use Safari? Do you use Firefox? As long as we can get to Google, or as long as we can get to Async or Gmail, Chrome,
Yep.
probably better for Gmail. But it really doesn't matter what the underlying thing is. And I'm trying to kind of abstract away the blockchain. So it doesn't really need to be felt by most people.
And that's an important point. I think the problem with blockchain right now is it's too complicated for people. It's too hard to understand. You lose your wallet, you lose your money. It's a scary concept for most people. How are you developing the app for users? What can the user expect when they go into the app?
What the user can expect is to be really shocked about, why is this a blockchain app? You download the app, you'll see kind of a cute dog, and we'll have a nice dog onboarding flow where you get to put information, such as your dog's name, his breed, his weight, which is a required field for most things. So we don't do any fat shaming dog tag.
My dog was skinny and Skeletor when I got her, refused to not have her plump.
Fair. Then the other fields are the microchip ID, which is a requirement in the States. You have to have a microchip. It's tough to get the ID number. So next time you're at your vet, they have the scanners there. It's easy for them to get. It just requires a specialized tool. I'd highly recommend you get that. Any of your listeners who have dogs and are interested in automating their travel documents. After that, there's an opportunity, because I'm sure most of the listeners now and most of our users today, they have old records of vaccines. So how do you get those into the app? There's a nice flow where you can add vaccination records for rabies, and it'll give you kind of a cool dashboard look. Here's how much time you have left. There's also the capability to add additional medical events. I do want this to kind of be the one-stop shop for your dog's entire medical history. So maybe your dog doesn't really work well with some type of prescription medication. This is a good place to kind of keep track of that. Finally, because Blaze is a service dog, I do have a service dog tag where you're able to, in the States, under the ADA, the restaurants or the entertainment venues you go to, they are allowed to ask 2 questions about dogs and service dogs. The first one is, does the dog assist you with a disability? Is it required because of a disability? And the second question is, what task is the dog trained to perform? So I have a little service dog tag that simply outlines Blaze is a diabetic alert dog, and Blaze is task trained to alert for diabetic blood sugars. And then I have a third one that is also vaccinated for rabies, because I don't think enough people know that that's a requirement for all dogs, especially if you have a service dog. This was built specifically and primarily for the service dog experience, and every other dog has 99% of the same requirements, so it works for all the other dogs as well.
Well, not only that, I was talking to somebody about the emerging birth crisis, the birth rate crisis not too long ago. And I'm actually starting to see companies bring your dog, here's clothes for your dog. It's becoming culture. Your dogs are now, or your animals are now your family, their pets, they're coming with you. I think if you were to make it a lot easier to travel with them, a lot more people would.
I think you are absolutely correct. And it's really hard to travel with them now. And I hear from a lot of people, it's the most stressful part of travel. They have to be away from their dog for a week or 2. That's not fun.
My parents have gone through it a long time because they have always had 4 or 5 dogs at a time. So they always spend $2,000 extra on their vacation. And then on top of that, sometimes they don't boarding kennel, so they'll have to find a new one. A big hell of a just trying to figure things out. And then on top of that, when COVID happened, everybody went out and got a dog. So
everyone.
It's hard to find daycares. It's hard to find these things now. And it's okay, maybe we need to start treating them as our children now, because this is what's coming to.
We're trying to make life easier for dogs, right?
Yeah.
That's an important thing. The government has imposed these regulations that make a lot of sense. Let's make them make sense in 2026.
Fair. You have your mission coming up to go speak on Capitol Hill. What do you plan on telling the lawmakers at the time?
So the event I'm going to is all about using the blockchain to modernize government, to stop waste, fraud, and abuse. And with dog tag, it's a dual proposition. Not only are we going to try and stop the waste associated with gas that it takes to do overnight shipping back and forth, but also the waste associated with manual review of these documents. I think that there is a very compelling proposition to make the government much more efficient in using the blockchain to verify these records instead of doing a manual review for them. And there are certainly going to be times where you need to review, when you need to perform a manual review. There's 3 vaccines that were all happening on the same day, or if a vaccine is expired, there's certainly ways that you can flag automatically some of the things that would be against the policy that the US has for dog travel, but it doesn't need to be as slow and it doesn't need to be as antiquated anymore.
I just want to take a second and say that the fact that the US government is taking the opportunity to completely modernize makes me so much happier. At least a government has a AI minister now, but not seeing governments upgrade. And I just wanted to point out that I'm happy that the government is at least trying to upgrade.
It's absolutely doing a good job of that. And I think that it took 15 years to get this technology to a place where we can say this is acceptable to be used for official record keeping. And that's what I'm going to try and make the case, that we should let dog owners have it be a little easier for them to travel. And I'm looking forward to talking to the government officials who want to engage. And I know that they're all going to want to say hi to Blaze. They're all going to want to ask me about Blaze, but hopefully they want to ask me about how we can make Blaze's experience easier.
Well, and I'm going to try and give this out to as many vets up here, because I know in Canada, the best way to get this integrated will be through private industry. It's the only way Canada does anything is if the private industry does it first, then we'll bring it on. I'm definitely going to do that. What are some of the things that people can help with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm really building here is a network. It's a network of veterinarians and dog owners and governments. And the most important constituent for me is the veterinarians, because at the end of the day, they are going to be the ones who issue these credentials, both on the blockchain and into the blood of the dog. And ability for vets to seamlessly add this to their already very busy schedule is a big ask. Now, this middleman between dog owners and vets and governments, I am committed to making the vet experience as good as I want the citizen experience to be. So if you are a vet and you're interested in blockchain and you're interested in making your patients' lives easier, please, my email address, I'm sure will be in the show notes. It's Dom. Please shoot me a note. We can set you up and we can develop a solution that is customized to you, that makes it easy for you and your staff to use. This will live and die with the vets.
Yes. And really, I honestly think vets really want these systems anyways. I know personally, my previous vet implemented their own system for keeping track of records and things like that.
Beautiful.
It's not on the blockchain, I can guarantee that. And it doesn't go outside of their app, unfortunately. But I do see the need for it. Is there anything I'm missing about the dog tag that we haven't talked about?
So I think we've touched on a lot of basic elements of it. One other dream use case for me is very specific to service dogs. There's a lot of trouble, quite frankly, that I've had even getting in Ubers in New York City, where we don't want to have a dog in our car. And so I'm almost always forced to call Uber Pet for a lot of complaining to Uber. They now, I believe, have a service dog thing on my Uber profile. So shout out to Uber for solving that. I appreciate it. But I've almost missed flights because a driver just drove away when he saw I had a dog. And I do think there's a very interesting use case for verification of dogs as service dogs, not only for things Uber, but also for restaurants and for other places where your hostess, she's trying to keep customers happy. Whether you have a dog and it's a service dog or it's going to bite someone's head off, they're not really thinking about that. So I really do pushing the adoption of dog tag to as many people as I possibly can. I want to build this network and I want to be able to make life for dog owners very easy, especially service dog owners who have this ability to, or requirement really, to take their dogs wherever they go.
Very fair. I'll make sure everything's down below. I just want to give you the last final thoughts. Shout out to where people can find you, anything that's coming up aside. So you'll be going live on the 2nd for this?
It might be the 1st. No, it's the 2nd. It's Monday the
Okay.
2nd.
So I'll be actually launching, maybe I'll push it out to the 4th just so that you can, we'll see. Do you have any final words?
I just want to say it's when I first got your message from a weird Canadian, I was, what could this be? But this is a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited to push out an Android version so you can become a user of Dog Tag, and really excited that you're highlighting what we're working on here at Dog Tag. I do think it is going to be one of those projects that helps inform the really groundbreaking work that people who are much smarter than me will end up doing.
I very much see it. I totally agree with you. That's why I talk about it instead of doing it anymore. I'm not smart enough to do it, but I can understand it at the very least. To everybody out there, thank you very much for joining in. I hope this was inspirational and I hope you join the Dog Tag app and stay weird.